Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of First Impressions on the Scratch the Track podcast, presented by the Dude and Grimm Show. I am the Dude.
And I am Grimm. And today we are going to discuss our first initial impressions on the album White Pony by Deftones.
We most certainly are. But before we get into that, Grimm, we want to make sure everyone goes ahead and likes, subscribes, and comments below. So play the soundbite.
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
Yeah. All right. So this is one band for us, Grimm, that I know myself, I've never really delved deep into the Deftones or Deftones catalog. And it doesn't sound like you really have either. So it's definitely not only a first impression probably of this album, but really of most of their work. It really is. And again, not a band that I will say between a very good friend of the show, Forrest, who suggested this to us. And also, I want to shout out to friend of the show, Justin Kozak, because I remember in college very distinctly, I was playing some music. I used to listen to this band that I got into back when I skateboarded in high school called Orange 9mm. And I distinctly remember listening to this song by them called Suspect. And Kozak in college heard that song. He was like, dude, if you like this, you really got to listen to the Deftones. And sold me on them. And you know what? I'm sorry, man. I just didn't do that. That one's on me. I just wasn't. I wasn't in kind of a metal phase at that time. Kid A had just come out. There was just a lot going on. I just didn't get into it. There was. Yeah. I was listening to that for probably a year and a half. So yeah, I was kind of busy.
Yeah.
But I think with this band and this album, and also sort of the purpose of doing this is I've listened to it probably once or twice and have some initial thoughts on it, but we'd love for people out there. This is kind of the album we're starting with. And from what I hear, it's kind of their kind of go-to
seminal album.
Or their biggest album. Yeah. So people who are huge Deftones fans, for other people maybe who aren't, is this a good album to start with? Would you recommend starting with another one? Certainly let us know below, because I'm sure the 343 people who are subscribed and watching this right now would love to know what album to start with. Would this be the one? Now, doing some research, there's about 5 different versions of this album that exist.
Yeah. And I think, was that what prompted this? Did they do a reissue on vinyl of this? I can't exactly remember what prompted it, but I feel like that had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think Forrest picked up the 20th anniversary reissue on vinyl. Now, here's the thing. That also comes with a companion remix album of this album. So different artists went through and remixed a bunch of the songs.
Oh, that's interesting.
So so it kind of comes with, the album itself, but then also the remix. And I guess the 5 different versions when it came out, you'd go into the store and you could buy there was in the jewel case, there was a red version and then a black version. And they both had 2 different booklet inserts. They included the song, the Boys Republic, but not Back to School, Mini Maggot.
Yeah.
But then the gray one came out and that didn't include Boys Republic. And then there was a white version that was released, and then that included Back to School as the first track. And now when I and I think I got all that right. Now when I download my version off Apple Music, and I think you said yours was either off Amazon or Spotify.
Amazon, yeah.
It seems to be the white version because Back to School, Mini Maggot is the first track on that. So
well, hold on. I guess white cover. I feel like that's interesting because I feel like it usually shows you the little thumbnail of the album cover, and I feel like it showed the gray cover. I can't look at it right now because my phone is busy recording this wonderful video, but I feel like they still showed the gray cover, and I could be wrong on that, but it did start with Back to School, which was not necessarily the original first track.
Hey, dude, my cover on Apple is, it's more blue than anything.
Oh,
so I don't know. Is there a blue version? I don't know. But
do you have something wrong with your rods and cones?
Actually, I think I might, but anyways, that's another story. We don't need to get on that tangent. Anyways, so this, yeah, dude, I mean, when I first listened to it, I didn't realize, like, I didn't really know much about Deftones or anything. And it was much harder than I had just kind of imagined it would be. Like, I didn't really know much about it. I fully
expected it to be as heavy as it was. But it's interesting because, again, I said I wasn't listening to like a lot of heavier stuff at the time. But I felt like, based on bands that I had listened to kind of throughout that period that came out with stuff that were heavier, I felt like this was different. And I feel like you could, because I've heard people call this like new metal, kind of.
Sure. I kind of heard that too.
But I could see how you could kind of put this in the same category as like maybe a Linkin Park.
I'm
not a
people
big,
by saying that.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge Linkin Park fan. No disrespect intended. It's just not really my thing. But I could certainly hear how this would be kind of in that vein, with the way that some of the cadence of some of the lyrics, some of the influence of a little bit of hip hop at times.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I was trying to think of what band it really reminded me of, and that's the band I was thinking of. I just couldn't think of them. Now, here's the thing. What I will say about that is, I feel like this has more of the rock metal. They lean a little more towards the rock metal, whereas Linkin Park leans more towards the rap and the hip hop. So I think that's where it really difference. It's different. But I do feel like there is sort of, they could be walking on the same path in the same direction a little bit. Definitely.
They would be billed together at a festival.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Now, who would get top billing? Well, I mean, most Deftones fans are going to say Deftones, and most Linkin Park would probably say Linkin Park. So.
Yeah,
I would rather see Deftones than Linkin Park.
Me too.
I will definitely say that.
Yeah, I would too. And I don't know. The album was interesting to me. The gentleman who produced it, Terry Date, I honestly had not heard of.
I had neither.
But one thing that I will say about the album that I think is interesting is, to me, the songs have differences. It's certainly not like you could just interchange the tracks and you wouldn't know the difference from song to song. But there is sort of a distinct sound and feel to it that goes throughout the album. It does have a very distinct sound, and I think that Terry Date had also produced the previous two albums that they did prior to this. And again, not having listened to those yet, not saying that I won't, I would like to, but I would like to hear if that sound sort of evolved over time, or if that was just always kind of their sound.
Yeah.
And either way, I think it's cool because it's something distinct, and it definitely sounds like them.
Yeah. Well, it'd be great for some of the people out there who are watching this, who may have been familiar with the first two albums and fans of the first two albums, and then they came out with this. What was your impression when you first heard it? Were you excited about it? Did you feel like they took a big leap forward? Because it sounds like, at least from some of the reviews and the critics, a lot of people said they kind of matured in their sound and they really kind of upped their game a little bit. So that's sort of the impression that I got.
Yeah.
And also it's interesting because this came out in 2000, right?
Yeah.
2000. And when I started listening to it, it was kind of cool because it sort of took me back to that era of late high school, early college, listening to the radio, because that was kind of like the rock. This has that rock sort of sound, metal sound that I was hearing on the radio at that time.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely. It kind of took me back a little bit. And dude, also very cool that you have Maynard James Keenan and Scott Weiland both putting in vocal tracks for this album. Now, I could pick out Maynard's. I couldn't
Yes.
when I listened to I guess Weiland sings on the RX Queen, and he's uncredited.
I believe
maybe
that's
it's his background
prescription.
vocals.
That's shorthand for prescription.
Well, that's what yeah. But it says RX. So
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. But
No, I didn't get that either. And, I felt like in the true essence of the Dude and Grimm show and what first impressions really means to us, I didn't do any reading about it prior to my first listen. I have listened to it twice through, and I did reading about it in between those. But yeah, okay. I did distinctly hear Maynard
totally
on Passenger. And it was interesting because I thought, I'm like, as I'm listening to it, I'm like, the riff even kind of sounded like a Tool riff. And I thought to myself, like, man, I wonder if he had any influence in writing it. And he sings, he has distinct vocal patterns that I think, and like melodic lines that kind of come through in that's what really got me. I was like, man, this could be a Tool song in a way.
Totally.
But I think a real good collaboration. And I think, I think it shows like an interesting kind of reach of popularity of the band too, that they had these other guys, because when you think about it, dude, Tool was really big at that time. I mean, Anima had come out probably like a few years before that. And obviously Stone Temple Pilots had been releasing, I would argue, some of the best albums of, that decade.
In 2000. Yeah, I think number 4 came out in 2000 or right around it.
Yeah.
It was because we were freshmen in college, right? When I think we really started
early
getting into that album.
Yep.
So, yeah. Well, here's the thing, Grimm. I don't know if you've picked out sort of, a track or anything that stood out to you, or you had a favorite song. I think one thing for me is I think overall, I think this is a really good album after giving it 1.5, 2 listens, at least in the past week. I think I listened to it once, like a few months ago.
Yeah.
I can't say one song or one thing like really stood out to me where I was like, okay, I'm going to gravitate back to that song and I'm going to listen. Like, that's the one that hooked me, and I'm going to listen to that kind of over and over and over. There is so far though, the one song that I guess I liked is the song Digital Bath. It has a little slower tempo.
I did,
and a mysterious kind of feel to it, which I liked that.
I felt similar about the song Teenager. It kind of had like this soft guitar pattern, and the guitar pattern's simple and slow, but then when they bring the beat in on top of it, I thought that was really cool. And again, I felt like that was something that, especially given the time, that would have set them apart, I think, from a lot of the other rock bands.
What people were doing. Sure.
And I did read too that when they were writing a lot of the lyrics, that Chino Moreno, I think the main lyricist, singer, rhythm guitarist, he said that this album was maybe like less autobiographical or about like him or his own life, and it was basically like a collection of it was basically like he was writing stories, if you will.
Right.
And I thought that was cool. Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of writing. I mean, when I think of people who do that, to me, the biggest thing that comes to mind is like Ray Davies of the Kinks, because so many of the Kinks songs, if you listen to it, are like stories kind of about other people. And I think it's an interesting way to write, because you can write these stories and sing them almost as if it were first person, right? But it's not, and I think that's kind of an interesting way to approach it.
Totally.
Now, one question. Go on.
Okay. So one song, and I have a question for you. It's kind of a production thing, I think. So there's the song Elite, and I'm not sure if this was kind of something I heard deep in the background, but there was some vocals that had an effect on them that sounded like Soundwave from Transformers.
Oh yeah.
You know that sound? Pink Floyd does that in Animals, I think, in one part.
It could be a vocoder. And a vocoder is an interesting thing. I wish I could tell you I have one. I have a Moog pedal that can kind of act as a vocoder in a way, because what it basically does is it takes the signal from like a synthesizer, and then it takes an input signal from anything else. I guess it could anything you could run into it, but most people use it with vocals, and it sort of like combines these two sounds into something else, which, I mean, as you reference in Animals, it's very clear in what they're doing. But yeah, I would guess that that's what they did. But I don't know, because I wasn't able to find out a huge amount about the production of this.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't either. So if people do know, if there's any good documentaries, YouTube videos, some good behind the scenes stuff, definitely let us know. Because I know there's some super fans out there. Let us know what you think. Send us some info. Send us some links.
Yeah, I'd like to know people's favorite songs too, because I could do a top 3 pretty easily, and I would say Digital Bath for me. Change in the House of Flies I really enjoyed, and I would say Teenager. I thought those were all really cool tracks. Nice. That like, the kind that like perk your ears up.
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, this is an album that I'll check out from time to time. I do feel like there's sort of a specific time that you're going to want to listen to this, because it is more on the harder side, and that just doesn't fit all my listening moods all the time. Sure. And typically when I do listen to something a little harder, I'll gravitate to like Nine Inch Nails or Stone Temple Pilots, like we talked about, their number 4 album, or even some of their other albums as well. But I typically gravitate towards that. But it's cool to have like another band and another album into the mix. And so for some of the fans out there, let us know if there's other albums that you think we should definitely check out. Like what's the next one after this that you guys would recommend? That would be a good one to know as well. So yeah, for me, I was thinking about giving Around the Fur a listen, because I remember seeing things about that album. I didn't listen to them at the time, but I just remember seeing that was a popular album. Now, one thing I got to ask you, dude, based on the fact that let's just say the original version that was released started out with, and please don't hate me if I butcher this, but Feet Sierra or Feet Sierra. I can dig that.
Would you prefer the album start with that or Back to School? Either one of them could be a good opening track. I can't, when I listened to it, because with the second time around after I read about it, I kind of listened to it with that in mind. Like, would I have a preference?
Well, so here's the thing. I'm actually going to put the song itself aside, and I would go with Feet Sierra, because apparently the version with Back to School that started, that was more of a marketing strategy, and the band was not happy that it was released that way. Okay, so that was that I did not from what I read. On. Yeah, from what I read, that was not their decision. So, and I honestly, I can't say that I disagree with that, because if you gave me the two songs, I like that one better than Back to School. I like Feet Sierra better than Back to School. I find it so interesting that, especially the record company, it's like, hey, we're going to put out this album. It's a special edition that a bunch of people have bought, but we're just going to put this song first now. Because here's the thing, both you and I are very album oriented people.
Dude, that is the fucking band's decision.
Dude,
sorry.
Dude, how you start an album is
a big deal.
So unbelievably important. Now, if they would have said, hey, we're going to come out with a sort of, because everybody does it now, right? Especially in the digital era, where there's the album and then there's always these bonus tracks. You put them at the end. Fine. I can handle that a little bit better. But when you put it as track number one, I'm just not cool with that.
You shouldn't fuck with what their artistic vision is, whether you've, provided the money up front for them to record it or not, because I get the feeling rather that they probably made good on, like, you know, getting back their investment on this one. It seems like it's certainly retained its popularity over time, and it was popular then because, again, as someone who didn't listen to them, I knew about it. You knew about it. Oh, dude, are you gonna make it?
I hope so. If you don't, I hope you know who to call.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Maybe I'll give you a call sometime.
Yes.
Is your number still 911?
Alrighty then.
Well,
it's okay.
In
on that
speaking
note,
of
Grimm,
that, yeah, I think we've made the first impression. Please make sure to
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
like and subscribe, and we would
Mark it
really
twice.
love to hear your comments, your opinions, what stood out to you. Especially
your
people
first
who have
impressions.
listened to this for the last 20 years. I mean, that's, I always like hearing people's opinions about that, because I know I sure as hell have mine about albums that I've listened to for that long.
Oh yeah, that's right. So don't kill us too much. We've only listened to it like twice. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll do a full scratch in the years.
Yeah.
to
I mean,
come.
you got to start somewhere.
That's right. So we started here. Should we
we've
start
never
somewhere
done
else?
this before. I just,
Exactly.
yeah.
Never.
So.
So on that note, all right, Grimm, it's time to go on
The Dude
the Dude and Grimm Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grimm. Additional music provided by Moore and the Tims. Copyright 2021. The Dude and Grimm Show.